Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Region 12 Board of Education meetings tonight. I'd like to start the meetings promptly at 7 o'clock. I've got on my, 3 after 7, but the clock here is, Alan, it hasn't moved since you touched it, so I don't know what you did to it.
It was dying.
Okay, so it's a few minutes after 7, I think. All right. So our first item tonight is the annual district budget meeting. So I'll call that to order. Is there a nomination for a moderator to conduct the meeting? Michael?
I'd like to nominate Debbie Bliven to serve as moderator for this meeting.
She has to be a member of.
Yeah, but there's nobody here.
Oh, yeah, there's a Bridgewater resident over there, and there's a couple people over here.
Do you want to ask them?
I don't know. Debbie, are you a resident of the region? No. See, that's the problem.
All right. Joan, would you act as the moderator? You have to read the notice of the meeting. Will you do it?
You're hired
All right.
again.
All right, we need, I'm sorry, Michael, that nomination won't work. Would you nominate Joan Lodson, please? Yes.
Yeah, I'll
Hold
withdraw
on.
my nomination of Debbie Bliven and instead nominate Joan, I'm sorry, Joan, what's your last name? Oatson.
Lodson.
Lodson, thank you.
And is there a second? All those in favor of having Joan Lodson act as our moderator, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Ms. Lodson, thank you. Would you read the notice of the annual district budget meeting? Do you have the notice? Why don't you go up to the podium, if you would, ma'am? Well,
Notice of annual district budget meeting. Notice is hereby given to all those entitled to vote in town meetings in the towns of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington that a district meeting will be held on Monday, May 9th, 2016 at 7 p.m. at Shepaug Valley School, 159 South Street, Washington, Connecticut, to present for approval the annual budget for the year 2016-2017, prepared by the Regional Board of Education for Shepaug Valley Regional School District 12, copies of which are on file with the respective town clerks of the district and at the central office of the Board of Education.
keep going.
Shepaug Valley Regional School District 12, Bridgewater, Roxbury, Washington, by James Hirschfield, Chairman, Board of Education, Washington Depot, Connecticut 06794.
Thank you very much. All right. Do we have a presentation of the board's budget in the amount of $21,361,448? It's been presented by the board. Is there anyone who wishes to address the budget? I guess Joan had nothing to say. Is there anyone who wants to address the budget? Anyone from the board? Well, hearing no one, then I will adjourn this annual district budget meeting. Thank you all, and we will adjourn the meeting to tomorrow, to Tuesday, May 10, 2016, to the polls in Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington, which are all open from 12 p.m. noon to 8 p.m. in each of the polling places for voting on the budget. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Yes. No, it's adjourned. No, it's always, as I recall, it's always been adjourned. We adjourned to the referendum.
It's an adjournment to a date certain versus an adjournment sine die.
Then the date certain is tomorrow. All right. All right, then, I'd like to call to order then the Region 12 Board of Education regular business meeting for May 9, 2016. Rebecca, can you take attendance, please?
Anthony Amato. Here. Valerie Anderson. Here. Alan Brown.
Here.
Gregory Cava. Here. Rebecca Devine, I'm here. Michelle Gora. Here. Emily Hibbard. James Hirschfield.
Here.
Jennifer Pody. Here. Michael Sinatra. Here. Peter Tagley. Here. Sydney Warble.
All right, so everyone is here except Emily and Sydney. Thank you. Opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? All right, seeing no one, then I'll move on to item 3. Item 3 is the consent agenda. The only thing on the consent agenda is the Education Committee meeting minutes of April 25, 2016. Is there anyone who desires to remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, seeing no one, then the consent agenda is approved. Item 4, report of the chair. Just a couple things, again, to remind everyone that the budget vote is tomorrow in all 3 towns. I'd like to thank those folks who've put up signs reminding folks of that, and would urge everyone to go to the polls and vote on the budget. Thank you, it's an important thing. Second, I wanted to commend the administration for the spring 2016 newsletter that came out. There was a lot of very positive comments about it, creating opportunities for the future. A lot of work went into it. It's a really high-quality product, excuse me. Wanted to thank those who were responsible for getting it done, and it's a really great product. There was some comment that it was too bad that some of the college acceptances weren't a little more up to date, but of course, as it was explained to us, this had to go to print in March, and these are the ones that they had as of that time. We've got something on the agenda to address that situation, to update it, but with regard to the document that was actually produced, this newsletter is really fantastic, so I'd like to thank Kim and everybody else who was responsible for putting it together. And Karen Files, I'm sorry. Thank you, Karen. It was really good. Okay. Also, some of you may have seen, there was an article in today's Waterbury Republican about Shepaug being back in contention. Heralded baseball program, restoring pride after some tough years. Goes on to discuss how baseball has always been a big part of the Shepaug community, and we've had a few down years, but that this year the team is doing very well. They're 9-3 in the Bantam League and 10-3 overall. They played one other game outside the league, which they won. So the team is doing really well, and in second place in the Bantam League, and just congratulations to them. You know, we're a small school, and we compete against mostly larger schools that have bigger populations to draw from, so to be able to do that well in the Bantam League is really a great accomplishment, as it is for all of our sports teams, not just the baseball team, but it is good to see the baseball team back. So congratulations to them, and hopefully they'll continue to do well. That's all I have for right now. Superintendent's report?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Start with some correspondence and announcements. Let me give you the updated kindergarten students. We have 11 at WPS, we have 14 at Booth Free, and we have 2 at Burnham.
This is for the
This
fall.
is for the fall. The student was registered in both Reach and in kindergarten, and we picked that up, and they're staying in Reach. So, yeah, we have 2 now. I want to let you know at the next board meeting in 2 weeks, I'm going to ask the board to make a motion to authorize the distribution of old equipment, old books, computers. What we're planning to do this summer, as you know, is the teacher's room, the work area. And we need to purge a lot of things that have been in there for many, many, many years. So we will give you a list of the things. We're following the policy. We're planning tentatively to have, once you approve the, that we can move forward, we're going to advertise that we're going to have a little flea market on June 4th, and the first hour will be for residents. So residents will have first shot of anything, and we have computers, and it's really old stuff. I mean, there's no hard drives in the computers, the monitors. We have things in the graphic rooms. We have things in the auto shop. We have just a lot of stuff. So what we'll do is the first hour will be a flea market for anyone in the towns. After that, it'll be opened up to whoever would like. After that day, we will either sell to recycling places, donate, or purge. So that's the plan. So I just wanted to let you know that that will be on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Yes, I'm sorry, Michelle?
Did you say that's going to be on June 4th?
Yes, a Saturday in the morning.
So does that mean that teachers have to dismantle their space before finals?
Well, the teachers aren't going to get rid of anything that they're going to still use. This is a lot of old stuff. It's not going to have an impact on finals. A lot of it's already in boxes and
Okay.
it's,
I just didn't want to create
we
a lot
need
of
to,
work.
we need to get it done before the summer, because once the summer comes, everybody leaves, and we really want to get a lot of the work done in that room over the summer. So we have a plan in place, but your part really is more than anything to allow me to move forward, and that's what I'm trying to see which policy this is. It doesn't have a number, of course. But it's in the policies. It's business, sales, and disposal of books, equipment, and supplies. Okay, so it's here, so I just want to let you know that's going to be happening. Also want to let you know on May 23rd, we have Nick Caruso coming from the Connecticut Board of Education to talk about the Lighthouse program. And I want to remind you, May 23rd and June 6th, both meetings start at 6:30 p.m. so that we can honor volunteers and our students. Okay, so the next two meetings will be at 6:30. Last week, I may have mentioned this 2 weeks ago, I don't know, but we can certainly mention it again. Last week was Nurse Appreciation Week and also Teacher Appreciation Week. So again, I want to thank everyone who works with our children in the nursing department and our teachers for doing a wonderful job. They were recognized at their schools, but I think it's important that they know how much we value their hard work and dedication to our students. We had a resignation of Adam O'Neill and retirement. Doug Winkle is retiring June 30th, so I know he's been a long time teacher here, in charge of the theater, and has done a fabulous job, so we wish him well on his retirement. And I believe that is everything that I have.
Valerie?
I believe it's normal to make a motion. I would like to make a special motion separate.
Is your microphone on, Val, please?
Since it's customary to make a motion, I think it's worthwhile to make a separate motion to accept Doug Winkle's retirement with great appreciation for his work, and I hope that he has a successful and quiet next few years.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Peter, I should have given you a chance, yes?
No, I have a question on something else.
All right, go ahead.
We're finished with this issue?
Yes.
This number of 27 is pretty frightening. If you carry that number forward, even if you add a couple of kids to it, let's call it 30, you'd have about 325 to 350 kids in the entire educational system. Yeah, that's pretty frightening.
Coming forward.
No, you carry that number, there's no reason to think that that number isn't within 10% of what we're going to be faced with. It's very frightening. And how do you go to taxpayers and say, we have 330, 340, 350 kids in 4 buildings in the entire educational system? That's really frightening.
Well, of course, we're not there now,
No.
and yeah, I agree with you. But for some of us, for most of us, I hope that, the hope is that if this Ag STEM program, we can get this off the ground, that will address, in part, our declining enrollment. That's part of the reason we're trying to get this thing through. So, yes, it is. But we're not there yet. We're trying to deal with it. Anyone else? Greg?
We have great company, Pete, because just
Right.
about
Greg, you need to speak.
We have great company, Pete, because just about every school district, just about every town and city and region in the state is having the same problem to varying degrees, with the exception probably of the city of Danbury and the city of Norwalk, which are both growing. But most of the school districts in Connecticut are declining. In fact, I heard a piece on National Public Radio about a week ago where West Hartford is building an academy that they're going to use to train the first 2 years of the students they are now bringing over from China and are adding to their school system. And they're going to be bringing in quite a few of them who are going to be high school students in that town. So you are seeing towns, and West Hartford's a big populous town. So the idea that West Hartford is having issues on declining enrollment and is bringing in students should tell you that this is a widespread problem. I don't know what we're going to tell the voters, but they're going to have to rethink perhaps their positions on how they have, they have approached this over the years when we get to those small numbers. Should we get to those small numbers?
All right, anything else for the superintendent? All right, I did want to go back. I neglected to neglect it. I neglected to state as part of the report of the chair that for those, I think that everyone may have received a letter about this or a notice, but the Shepaug Valley Middle School promotion ceremony is on Friday, June 10th at 7 p.m. here. And then the Shepaug Valley High School graduation is on Saturday, June 11th at 10 o'clock a.m. here, hopefully outside if the weather's nice. So those are both wonderful ceremonies, and so if any of you wish to attend, please do so. All right, moving on to committee reports. 6-1, Ag Science Steering. Mr. Amato, anything?
Just what people probably already know, but HB 5304, which is our bill for the bonding of the project, did not get voted on before this regular session concluded. I have not gotten any notice yet from the state because I get a daily mailer, and it has not yet been calendared. So we know that the body's going into special session. The Senate is, last I heard, this Thursday. I don't think we have a date yet for the House, but anyway, this bill has not yet seen a calendar. So I'm assuming that because it's part of the budget, that it'll be swept up in all the other bills that didn't get taken up purposely, because the budget deal that was reached was an 11th hour budget deal, and people needed time to get their minds around these things. So that's where that stands.
Okay. I did read just in the newspapers, and I'm sure you know more, but it said that the budget and the bonding issues were going to be considered in the special session. So,
Yeah, makes complete sense.
Mr. Geeson, do you have anything that you can add to that?
That's exactly the process, and it does get bundled together all to the last minute, if you will, and it keeps the appropriations together, and that's what that building project bill is going to do. I don't know, it spans probably about 12 pages now.
Okay.
So it's in there. Hopefully they'll get a budget.
All right. Thank you. Anything for Anthony? All right, thank you. Education Committee, Michelle, anything?
No, actually, I don't think we're, I don't know what's on our next.
Well, we have Nick Caruso coming.
Right.
Let me see if I have anything else that I can think of. I know we,
May 23rd is our next Education Committee meeting.
right, we also, we're trying to get, at a meeting today, Mrs. Gambino was saying how we had our first fuel cell car. So we're hoping to get a demonstration on the 23rd. We're seeing if that person is available. And I think Joan Temple may be presenting on May 23rd,
I think you're right.
unless it was changed.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, so we have a big meeting on May 23rd, a lot going on.
I forgot, I knew we had something to.
All right. Facilities, Greg, anything?
Yes, at our last meeting, we did talk a little bit about the updates on the Ag
Greg,
Center project.
you need your microphone.
At our last meeting, we did talk about updates related to the Ag STEM project, which include the fact that the Call Before You Dig people have marked our site. The wetlands probably have been flagged by now, but they'll be in the process of being flagged along with the survey completing things. Mr. O'Leary is going to take a look at a magnet school in East Hartford to look at a variable refrigerant flow HVAC system of the type that we need to use in our new building in order to meet LEED Silver requirements for environmental impact. And so things are moving apace. We're in the process of obtaining an RFP, RFQ for a commissioning agent. Bob, I don't know if that has been finished yet, but
It's been, I'm sorry.
has it been advertised yet?
It's been advertised, it's been in the paper.
I'm sorry, what is this?
This is a commissioning agent. A commissioning agent is someone who reviews the plans for mechanical things like HVAC and lighting and other things. And what they do is they certify that it's going to work properly, that you're going to get what you expect to get from it. So this is a very important piece of the process of doing a building in this day and age with a lot of these modern systems and things that are not always, like for example, this HVAC system is not something that's been put in a lot of places. But you need to use it to get LEED Silver, and we need to have LEED Silver. It's required, and we want to do it. So that's what a commissioning agent does. So we're out there attempting to get the bids for the.
The bids are
RFP.
due on Friday.
Okay. And so that's what's going on with the AgSTEM project. We also talked about the school shutdown work update. If you folks recall, we had a leak in the boys' locker room this past winter that resulted from the freeze-up when we had that night where it got down to 15 or so below zero. A pipe froze from some air that got in, infiltrated the wall, and it burst in the wall, and we had to tear down some wall to fix that. I believe that's now been repaired. We have also done some installations of a new set of doors on the Burnham School have been completed. These were doors that had to be replaced because the wood just wasn't making it, and so those have now been completed. All the elementary schools have room numbers installed, as was requested by our security people. We've done some lowering of the toilets in Washington Primary School so that they would be the right height for the students using them. Important stuff. The front planting beds at Shepaug have been mulched, and the cafeteria has been painted. If you have not had a chance to go look at the cafeteria, please do so on your way out tonight. It has been painted in a way that matches the mall, that ties it in with the mall a lot better, and it's a vast improvement over the previous look and the one before that. We have also installed if you go down the athletic hallway, you will see that the trophy cases have now been installed in the wall that used to be lockers. And the final one at the very far end that's been custom built, that we custom built ourselves, is going to house the sort of Shepaug gear and stuff that kids would be buying that they normally would get from the armory, some of the doors of which no longer open. And we're now going to have it on display there, so that's part of that. And that hallway will eventually be given the mall treatment in terms of the look of it. But that is a critical hallway because it's going to be a lot about what's going on at Shepaug. It's the Shepaug spirit. It's going to be the primary conduit between the Ag Science School and the rest of the school and back and forth. And for that to be something that really draws kids in to being part of Shepaug is a welcoming kind of feature. And we think that hallway is going to be terrific. And it's going to be geared a lot toward the athletics because that's what's over there. So in any event, that's an ongoing process. And also the tennis courts. We have an issue with the tennis courts. It turns out that they are cracking. It's because of this past winter, the last two winters, but particularly the past one were just brutal on the tennis courts. And as a result, the courts that we are going to tear up in less than a year are going to have to be repaired so they'll be usable. We are trying to do it in the most cost-effective way possible. But if we're going to have a tennis program this spring, well, actually now, and we're going to have to get that done. So that has been started, and that should be finished shortly. So in any event, that more or less is it. We thanks to the town of Washington, we had a number of potholes in our roadways here at the school repaired rather, and that's more or less what's going on in facilities. I thought I'd give you a more detailed report than usual because I haven't done it in a while. So there you go. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all the work on that.
Greg?
Is there any questions for Greg? Peter?
Have we spent any money with Castle Booze?
Yeah,
How much have we spent so far?
$25,000.
Yeah.
25, we have another bill.
Well, here's the question I have. Suppose the legislature sits on this doesn't do anything. Just how far does the board intend to go?
Well, Pete, I mean, one of the things that we're sort of stuck in a tricky area. We have, if we don't take the actions we're taking, we're not going to be ready to deliver the school on time. If we do take the actions that we're taking, we run the risk that we may spend some money that we don't get back. You have to look at while there's risk either way, since we've never had a situation in which these funds, once they've gone as far as they've gone in the process, we've never had a situation that the funds didn't come forward, versus there are probably thousands of situations where people sat on their hands, didn't do the work they needed to do, and then were late in delivery. We decided that I think we pretty much decided that the risks weigh in favor of going forward. If we end up with an issue and we don't go forward, what we will have done is we will have gotten modern surveying and wetlands flagging, 2 projects we've wanted to do for a long time. We may, if we go far enough on this, have had a geotechnical study done, which will allow us to know whether or not we can build on the site in certain ways, but that may not happen before the funding comes through. And finally, we've spent a little money on an architect, but I don't know what else to tell you. Sometimes you have to spend that money with the expectation that that you'll have your program.
Well, here's the problem I have. I have no problems with what you're doing, but I would cap the amount of money that we would be spending on a project for which we don't have approval from the state. I mean, what is the number that you're going to spend through your committee? If it's 25, 50,000, or is it 500,000?
Well,
Or is
Pete,
it a
I mean,
million?
we're
So,
going
I
to
mean,
know.
the board would look, let me finish. The board wouldn't look too good in the public's eye if we put out a number of $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, and the state decides it's not going to fund our project this year. So we could say, well, when we get funded, maybe we'll get funded the following year, fine, we'll have done all the work. And I don't hold anything against the facilities committee or any committee for getting things going. But it seems to me the board would be put in a very embarrassing situation if we spent a significant amount of money to say, well, we want to get a jump on the project, we want to get ahead of the project, the state, we want to be ready to go, we want to get it ready to put the shovel in the ground, and the state says no deal. So how do you explain that?
Well, Pete, we aren't, I mean, we aren't like sitting there like idiots. I mean, we recognize that we don't want to spend a couple of $100,000 on this. We've had one bill for 25, I think we have another bill for 25, and by the time, 75, by the time we get much further into it, I think we're going to have an answer from the state. And then we can rethink our strategy of whether we want to proceed if the state decides not to fund any projects for whatever reason.
All right, I have no problems with what you
we
said,
can do it.
right. I have no problems with what you said so far and the numbers you're talking about. My concern is if it gets into 6-figure numbers and something happens at the state level, I don't think the taxpayers are going to sit there and think we're doing a wonderful job. I think that's my concern. It's bad publicity if the state puts us in an embarrassing position and we try to get a head start on the job. So that's my concern, because it reflects on all of us.
Well, I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying. The other observation I would make is that if we do not get our plans finalized in terms of the building, because we've been going back and forth, and the building committee's meeting tomorrow night, and we're going to hear from the various people who are specialists in the different fields that are put into the building, what their comments and questions are on the set of plans we're looking at now. If we don't finalize this process by June 1st, so that we have a set of plans that's more or less final, other than minor marginal tweaking, we are not going to make, we are going to start put ourselves in the position where we may not make our delivery date of July of 2018. So the difficulty we've got is that if we hadn't done what we did to date, then we'd be talking about opening the school in 2019. You'd be adding a year to the process. So we needed to go as far as we've gone. What we will try to do is try and not to go much further without a rethink, if we hear that the funds are not going to be approved this year.
That's fine.
And so I mean, that's
I'm
about the only
just
thing.
worried about the board being held by the public in a very difficult position, in an embarrassing position. And throwing mud at the board. We don't want to have that happen. Even if I had to wait a year, I would rather do that than to be stuck in a really difficult position. So, I mean, that's the only reason I brought this up.
Right, no, it's a good point, and we're cognizant of it.
All right, anything else for Greg?
Just a
Valerie?
procedural
Yes.
thing, it would maybe be helpful if Greg is listed as building committee chair, giving a report on the building committee separate from facilities.
I was going to suggest that, but thank you. I think that's a good idea.
All right. Anything else for Greg? All right, Greg, thank you, and thank you for your time. Finance, Valerie? Anything?
We met prior to this meeting, and we already made note in the April 30th financial statements that we reviewed, indeed, that the frozen pipes have caused some deficit in our accounts, but basically, the overall budget stays happily in the black, tracking with the previous years at 1.2% or $260,465. So we're in the black, most all accounts, and certainly all categories. By the way, we had a question about the cost of the newsletter. There was some praise for it, absolutely. For the record, 4,884 copies were mailed. About 5,000 total were kept because there are some excess. We noted that it cost $650 for postage, $6,480 for the actual printing. And in addition, one of our members of the public asked about the cost of the signs for the budget referendum. There's 100 signs at $437 cost, and these can be recycled, so it was good use of money. After we reviewed the April 30th financial report, we did a reconciliation of the 1% reserve account, and that balance stands at, $482,671 in the 1% account. By the way, the budget the financial report I was just citing includes our 1% allocation of $215,000. So we are in good shape with the 1% fund, good shape with the operating budget, that is to say, of 2015-16. And then we did a reconciliation of what was pending for the capital non-recurring account, which is the elementary school lease, and we still have $751.65 left in that, which is good because it shows a lot of work is being done, and certainly we hope that the selectmen are pleased that that money that was put aside for elementary school work is indeed being used. As soon as our budget is approved, we will have another $100,000 allocated into that account. We talked about some housekeeping issues having to do with a bank account that's open to support the AgriScience Science Lab renovation project. We talked about a new way to process accounts payable, which will streamline the payment process and help the ladies that are in the office manage their accounts in a easier fashion, and also we can make a little money out of that. And then we talked briefly about the school lunch program. We will get some recommendations from Bob in the future that we'll pass along to you, that perhaps we will increase the school lunch cost. And we have a meeting with Wells Fargo Pension to discuss the portfolio for the non-certified pension plan on Monday, May 16th, 3:30 at the central office. So it sounds like it'll be a lot of good fun.
Thank you, Valerie, for that comprehensive report. Alan?
I may be forgetting something. You know how we took the teachers' collaboration area renovation out of the budget?
Correct.
Am I forgetting that since then we have voted to pay for that out of the 1% fund?
Correct. It's already out of the 1%.
We did do that then?
Correct.
Gotcha.
It's already considered, and it's in that reconciliation that still leaves us a balance of $482,671.
We must have done that.
Because we went 215 in, 200 out.
Anthony?
Yeah, just to clear, we voted on taking 200,000 out of the capital fund towards the workspace. The estimate was 250, and the 50,000 of expense stayed in the budget.
Right. I just don't know why, I don't remember when we did that.
I think when we.
We did it to decrease the budget, and the 50,000 wasn't considered appropriate for the 1% fund as a capital expenditure.
I just don't remember our actually doing the 200,000 moving, but.
That was when we approved the
We didn't do it
budget.
the same meeting, did we?
Yes, we did, when we passed the budget, as I recall.
Yep.
yeah. All right, anything else for Valerie? All right, Valerie, thank you again. Long-range planning, Alan, anything?
Oh, sorry, one more thing. We did
Yes.
talk briefly, when we were talking about the elementary school lease fund. Question was, what is the lease length? Is it 20 years? Do you remember, Mr. Cava, for the lease? Okay, we're just curious, because we knew how much fun that was to do. So we're hoping it was 20 years.
All right, anything else for Valerie? All right, long-range planning, Alan, anything?
Yeah, I'll just be brief, because I really have a recollection that we've covered this, because Pat talked about this in the board meeting that followed the long-range plan, long-range planning committee meeting on the 25th of April. I believe we've talked about Lighthouse, obviously, because we're going to be hearing from Nick Caruso at the next board meeting. And we also talked about, I remember going through this twice that night, so we must have talked about the high school redesign, the Imagining High School project? Okay, High School Reimagined. That was really the bulk of our discussion. We also talked a little bit about Lyle Kurtman's that Pat spoke to. She went and saw him speak at a seminar prior to that meeting about leadership roles and leadership strategies towards strategic planning. But otherwise, the bulk of our meeting was taken up with talking about Lighthouse and High School Reimagined. So I have nothing to report except for the fact that we will get to the other items on our agenda, which were the International Baccalaureate, multi-age, which we really want to talk about because some of us attended the multi-age seminar in Danbury week before that with Dr. Stone, who's the expert on multi-age. And also inter-school class population distribution, which is a hot topic that I know Valerie cares about. And we'll be getting to that next week. Thank you. Or next meeting. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? Yes, I think that reconfiguration conversation, I think I am concerned about that, certainly with 2 kids in a kindergarten. And frankly, I'm shocked that WPS is so small at 11, smaller than Booth. Can I also suggest that when you talk, and obviously this is a big issue, but I do think that the way to redistribute the REACH program in an appropriate way to maybe encourage some kids in the Bridgewater area, they have a part of REACH that maybe would flow naturally into the elementary school. I don't know the distribution of how many kids are in REACH from Bridgewater, but to me, if we want to beef up that side of the district, having a REACH program, I understand they want to keep some of the special ed issues under one roof, but it seems to me that a pre-K in other schools in our district would be smart, because it encourages parents. And it encourages parents then to keep their kids at that respective school. If your kid goes to Montessori for pre-K, chances are the kid will stay in Montessori. So I just think that we're missing perhaps a valuable way to introduce parents to the system.
Well, that's something that's interesting. I mean, obviously, you remember in previous years I pushed for that, but I know there was a whole issue both of having greater facilities at WPS for REACH at the moment, but also there was an issue of not being able to offer a pre-K in a town that didn't allow for special ed students to be educated in that pre-K, which means you couldn't very well say, well, we have our special ed facilities up at REACH, up at WPS, but we can have pre-K in Bridgewater and Roxbury for Bridgewater and Roxbury kids if they're not special ed. And that was a problem. We can't do it that way. However, and this is the interesting thing, and as much as I want to follow up with Warren, which is a school that is doing multi-age at the moment, and we have things to learn about how their successes that they're having to look at it in terms of a program for our region, they also have a pre-KK at Warren, and they have pre-KKs in at least more, well, I'm not in at least, but more than one location in that school district. So somehow they're doing it. Either they're offering the full special ed in both locations or in more than one location. I keep saying both, but I don't know what I'm talking about. More than one is all I know, greater than one. So either they've overcome it in some way, or there's a stipulation that we're abiding by that may not be necessary, but that's something we're going to look into too.
And I do understand that it's good to have a lot of services for particular children under one roof and in one grouping, and those children also have to be met and partnered with mainstream children. That's the way REACH always was, and that's when it was over here. I'm frankly a little concerned that that those children, which is a fairly small amount now of identified children, are being overwhelmed by mainstream. In other words, I don't know the number. I remember something like far less than 10 children are actually identified needing services in that age group, and yet we have 34 mainstreamed. So I think that somehow some kind of distribution would be effective to beef up the popularity of the two other schools, separate from WPS, keep parents involved who have now started the system by sending their kids to those elementary schools, and also to look and make sure we're not kind of overwhelming our identified children with too many mainstream. There's a balance, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else have anything for Alan? All right. Alan. All right, negotiations, Greg, anything?
Yes, the first thing I was going to say, though, before I do negotiations, is I think those signs you did, Pat, are really popular. And I judge that by the fact that the two that were planted in front of my house disappeared. They walked off sometime over the weekend. I'm not quite sure when. But in any event.
As long as they weren't egged.
Negotiations. We, believe it or not, our teacher's contract is up in July of 2017, so we are going to commence negotiations with the teachers union at some period of time, probably after the referendum. I'm not quite sure when we're going to start.
Just for those who don't know, that we get notified by the state that we are instructed to commence negotiations by a certain date and finish them by a certain date. So we've received that notice from the state. All right. Policies, Michelle, anything tonight?
No, we do not have any policies on our agenda tonight. We met last month. Oh, wait. We met last month, and we went through, I believe, about 4 policies, but they're all still in the works. I just want to let you know that we reviewed some CABE samples for homework policies, but they did not address the holiday issue, so we are going to look at policies from other districts, so we're still working on that. And graduation requirements was something that we've looked at a couple times. The state has made some changes, and we want to make sure that we're struggling with making sure our policy is clear enough for students and parents looking at it to know what they need to do, but yet flexible enough to not lock us into a particular class. There are some things in there currently in our policy that we're not doing now because that class is not being offered, so we're trying to strike a nice balance, and so we're still working on it, and hopefully we'll have some policies for next month.
All right, thank you. I mean, we have been passing and discussing lots of policies lately, so I appreciate the work on that. Alan?
Yeah, I just have a question. Previous, I guess it's finance and facilities a little bit. And I may be wrong, but I'm just bringing it up. This is our motion on April 6th to move the $200,000 out of the operating budget for the renovation of the teacher's workspace and commit to the renovations of the teacher's workspace out of the 1% fund. So I know that we did that, but I recall leaving and thinking, now we have to make sure that we actually move this money and do it. In other words, I think we committed to do this, but I don't think we ever voted to actually allocate the money, and we need to do that. Because, and I may be wrong here, but I noticed Anthony abstained from that vote. And I think it was because as that vote happened, Anthony was skeptical that we were doing something that we wouldn't follow up on. And now I think we're treating this as the action. I think we need to actually have a vote to move the money and not
Well,
just to.
I think, as I recall the conversation,
You see that?
it was because we weren't sure if some portion of that work truly should be in the 1%.
Right.
So as it turned out, the 200 was allocated out. I changed my motion because it was originally 250.
250, right.
And I changed it to 200. Thankfully, when Bob was able to look at the work, he determined that approximately 200 indeed is
Right.
capital expenditure, and 50,000 would not fit that, which is the painting. So I don't remember any strings or
Oh,
problems
no, I'm
with
just,
that
not
motion.
strings, I'm just saying it's like we committed to do
No,
it,
no, no,
but we
Alan.
never actually did it.
No, what you did was reduce the budget by
Right.
$200,000 and made a motion to take to use the 1% fund to fund that $200,000. So the 1% fund is now funding $200,000 worth of work.
Well, just as long as the language actually,
Well, if
I
I
see what
may-
you mean, though, that
If I
should we
may,
have
I
a
have a
separate?
copy of the April 6th meeting minutes, and it says amended motion made by Valerie Anderson, seconded by Peter Tagley, to move $200,000 out of the operating budget for the renovations of the teacher's workspace and commit to the renovation of the teacher's workspace out of the 1% fund.
Right.
That's
That was-
pretty clear.
That was
Double whammy.
passed.
And it
And then
passed
there was a vote to pass the budget of
with that
21,361, 448, and that was
Probably should have
passed. So I
made
think-
two
I think
motions,
that-
but it was all
yeah.
combined.
if everybody's happy with that standing for doing what we wanted to do and that it actually did what we wanted to do, then I'm fine. I just want to make sure that, I just had this recollection that we were leaving something to do. And if it turns out that wasn't necessary, that that's sufficient to move the money out of the 1% fund, and if everybody's happy with that, then fine.
All right, thank you, Alan, for bringing that to our attention. Anything else on that issue? All right, then item 7 on the agenda, old business. Is there any old business? There's nothing on the agenda. Does anyone have anything? All right, item 8, new business. Discussion, college acceptances. Create and send out a flyer with updated college acceptances. Is there anyone who wants to speak to this?
Yeah, I asked for this on because I was really delighted with this newsletter, because it's the kind of thing that arrives in people's mailboxes at this time of year and really shows all taxpayers, all residents, what a great school system we have. And it kind of works in conjunction with the upcoming budget vote. People pay attention to these things more when they're about to vote to have their taxes pay for this. They want to see what's going on, and they look at that. And then the other way around, when they look at that, they're more inclined to want to pay for what they're seeing is going on here. So it really works together. On another side of things, though, we have a real, and I know a lot of you have heard this, you saw my email, so what I'm doing this is for the record, because we can't really have anything in email be official for FOI. But it also is part of a general goal that we have to be impressive and show off our impressiveness to the best of our abilities. And what I was concerned about was that the college acceptances were dated as of March 1st, and April 15th is when when they're all in, the date when they finally show up, the final tally. And this, of course, is acceptances. It's not actually admissions or matriculation. But unfortunately, due to the print schedule and the time that it took to get the thing designed, according to Karen, and the print process, we couldn't sub in fresher data. The problem is that there are some great schools that were left off that list who subsequently accepted our graduating students. And I'd love the public to know about it. And I'd love the public to know about it, not on our website where, a few people go check it out because that's kind of a passive thing, and not in next year's newsletter or in something later in the fall, but right in this season. And it is something that can stand alone, I think, and not even as an errata, but just as something that really shows off one of the most, I think, salient features of PR for a school system is where do, if you look at our banners up here, where do our graduates go? It's not as complicated as rankings and standardized testing and what courses we offer and what electives we have and how diverse our this and that is. It's a very basic thing that people judge a school system on. And as we're trying to keep as many families in the school system and attract as many new families as possible, I wanted to see what the budget looks like for being able to issue another flyer, just a single-page flyer that touts our this year's college graduates. Because not only is it this time of year, and as I said, people are focused on this, but as another board member pointed out, this is a time of year when people are thinking about where they're going to be sending their kids next year. And that having something that comes out in the summer and the fall might be too late for that. So I know that we had budget for the longest time for newsletters, and we cut it down because we used to do 4, and then we used to do 3 newsletters. And then we now do 1, and it's that much more beautiful. And the beauty factor added to the budget, but certainly the only doing 1 issue cut the budget considerably. So I'm wondering if we have, if there's any interest, if we could muster the interest in the budget to issue another mailing, just to be very proud of our college acceptances at the moment and get it out, within the next couple of weeks.
Karen, can you speak to that? Karen Files? If not, that's fine. I'm just,
Well, I can speak a little bit.
all right. Go ahead.
We certainly can, if the board chooses to send out a flyer, we certainly can do that. There were 73 colleges listed in the newsletter. On April 15th, there was 107 updated on the web and the TV and all of those kinds of things. We've talked about extending the date in the future. It's never going to be 100%. But if the board would like to do that, that's fine. I do want to let the board know that we did get about 4 or 5 phone calls last week about the beautiful newsletter that we sent out and how much did it cost and why did we send it to everyone if only 10% of the population uses the schools. I explained, of course, why. But we can do it. It's not a problem on our behalf. We can certainly do it. And the other thing I do want to just say is that we had discussed, I think Michelle was on this committee, sending out in the fall, when we got right back, just a newsletter with not only college where we were accepted, but where kids were going, and the information about the class of 2016, plus information about new teachers and start of school. So we did plan on doing that also. But we're happy to do it if the board would like.
Valerie?
I just want to, I'm rereading your letter again. Very well written, by the way. You get an A for editing. But I'm confused by your concern. I mean, are you talking about you want to see where kids actually decided to go to
No.
college?
Oh,
Or you're
no.
concerned that we haven't opened it up enough to see all the acceptances? That is to say, a kid can apply to 8 colleges and be
Oh, no, 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 no.
5,
No,
and
no.
those should be here.
It was simply that it happened to be, and it may be coincidental, or it may be that the most competitive and highly competitive colleges and universities don't choose or announce their choices until the last minute. But it seems as if, even though there was a very good list that was printed in the newsletter, there were some really eye-catching, most and highly competitive institutions that were not there. So that when your person is looking to, well, I want to send my kid to Shepaug or to another school, and let's check out their acceptances, or what about the private schools around here, they're not going to see some of the upper shelf institutions, because those acceptances came in later. So I'd like that, so the
Sometime
gist of
between
that.
March and
Yeah.
April. So it's not necessarily that if a kid, see, it's been a while for me, thank God. But, kids usually have to say by April 1 where they're going to attend.
Right. No, that's
So
not
it's
that list
not
I'm
about
talking about.
that. It's
No,
just
I'm
make
just talking
sure we
about
have
there
the
was.
entire basket.
There were some
of
nice
acceptances.
eye-catching names that would be good for people who are going to get something like this in their mailbox, who have even the most cursory interest in the school system, lock it in their heads, so when they're at the next cocktail party, they won't go, oh, Shepaug, I don't know where kids go from there. They're going to go, I saw this. You know what? They go to blah, 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 blah. And that's the kind of bubbling of information that we've really had a trouble counteracting in our communications work in the last, as long as I've been around. Because no matter what we do surgically to get information out, there's always the bubbling hotbed of misinformation that survives regardless. And that's why I think this is a very, a very, what's the word for it? A very, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, glaring kind of thing that people will remember and will help to raise the quiet, subconscious esteem of our school system.
Could I suggest that instead of a separate mailing, because, we did spend a lot of money on this, that maybe we do the old-fashioned press release and do this separately, so it's not lost in a lot of other accomplishment, just a press release, and we don't have to buy someone in the media to do that, that says the class of 2016 is X number of kids, and they've been accepted at all of these colleges, including, and let that hit the newspapers, which might be more effective and more targeted and more specific to the news that you want to have dispersed, instead of paying for a newsletter.
I mean, do you think so? I mean, do
I
people
think so.
pay attention to that as much as they pay
Yeah.
attention to something that
I
lands
mean,
in their
we've
mailbox?
We got the Waterbury Republican, Spectrum, Litchfield County Times, Voices. You get one newsletter, boom. And then we're absolutely signaling college acceptances. And if someone misses it, okay. I mean, it will be in our minutes, it'll be in our presentation of the graduating class of 2016, and maybe the next newsletter might include it next year, but more importantly, press release. We'll get a good distribution, and you know what? It'll be outside the 3 towns. It will be in New Milford and Bethel and Sherman and everywhere else.
Peter?
Did the towns put out newsletters? I know Washington does. Does Bridgewater put out news?
Yeah.
Why couldn't we put something like that in the various towns' newsletters?
Well, we could, but
I think Alan's
matter of
concern was to
timing.
get it out now.
Oh,
Right
okay.
now-
Well,
now,
then, that's different. But in the
Won't
future,
affect
I think-
tomorrow's budget vote, but it'll just, with the ag stem on the front burner, and it just
Okay.
give people a good feeling.
All right. In the
Michelle.
future, it may be a good idea, though.
Michelle?
I have several thoughts. I think, I understand the concern, definitely. I think a separate, just single piece of paper might just seem a little strange. So, so I have 2 thoughts. One, I do think that a fall release on the graduating class, that's a comprehensive report of the college acceptances and the awards and sort of all of the things that Todd
That
Dyer
Todd
usually comes,
gives us, yeah.
would be really good. And I think actually fall timing is better for that because the 8th grade students who are considering, they're taking their SSATs and they are filling out applications and visiting schools late fall, early winter. They've already decided, this newsletter missed this 8th grade class. The parents looking at.
But it hasn't missed this 7th grade class.
Oh, no, not the 7th grade.
Anthony?
But most of the students who are currently in 8th grade have already decided for next year that those decisions,
Yeah.
they've had to make that decision.
Talking about rising 8th grade, though.
Oh, well, rising 8th grade, right, but they're going to be where they are in 8th grade, a fall timing on the state of, what the senior class did, I think is actually better than May. I still think the end of April, early May is a crucial time to be reporting back to the taxpayers about what the things going on in our schools. It may or may not be the right newsletter for reporting on the senior class. We can debate that, we could talk about that. I do think that if it comes to layout, though, it's pretty clear, if we want the college acceptances in the newsletter, we should be able to tell them, designers, save a page, we can adjust the font, we'll send you the rest, the updated list. I don't know what the last date for edits was, but I can understand that they would need, 3 weeks for designing the entire thing, but hold a page for that and we can update. So I would think that we could probably be a little more up to date than March 1st for a April 15 printing. However, I'm not sure that piece of information is as critical in May, and maybe we should just wait and do a full report in the fall when we have everything in, and we can do that piece justice, because we're not rushing, because things are just coming in, and that class hasn't even graduated yet, and we're reporting on them. So even though it's exciting, and it's exciting, especially for all the parents right now who are open, and the students who are opening the mail, I don't know that it's as critical that is reported in May, and maybe we should just pull that out of the May. You want to see it in May?
Well, I guess I'm trying to do
April.
two things. One is I'm trying to recover from this situation.
Right.
But I guess we also need to figure out how we're going to do it next year. But the thing is that if we're going to have college acceptances in there, and people open it and look at it, it can't be ho-hum. And that means that the sparklers can't be omitted. Otherwise, there's no
Right.
point in doing that, because a lot of people may not look a second time. They may not look in the newspaper. They may not, in the fall, you're right, that would be a whole different presentation. But as far as the people who get this, and of the small percentage of them quibble that we're spending money on sending it to everybody in the region, anybody who looks at that is going to look at that and go, huh. And that's what we want to, that's a shame that it happened this time. We want to avoid that in the future. And in between that, I'm wondering how we can recover from that at the moment. Because there are people out there now who, until they see a press release, or until they receive a brochure in the mail, or until they get this college package you're talking about in the fall, will harbor this kind of sense of like, well, it wasn't as good as last year. Oh, I thought I remember better schools last year. And that's what I'm afraid of is going to brew over the summer, or until whenever we get something else out.
Right.
Anthony?
I do think that there's still a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks left in this 8th grade class before they commit to their high schools.
Really?
Yeah. And in fact, I think there's at least one family that I know personally that, I don't know if they've made up their mind yet, but the college acceptances is one of the key metrics that they were looking at. That's, it's not a, it's really just more of an observation about how people are making their choices, right?
Right.
So that's just one point. I don't know firsthand, but I believe the window is closing. So we have 8th grade students, and Alan's right. This is about how do we deal with what we've got now, because we do have some good things to get back out to the public. And if we can catch that one student after hearing, numbers that we started off with, we need everyone.
Absolutely.
Right? We can't afford to let anybody slip through. If we could, and the thing is, it's the kids and the school have done the heavy lifting here. They actually got into the school.
Yeah.
Right? This is the easy part for us, is to make sure that everybody who has any interest, casual or not, knows it. Right? So thank God these kids are being able to get accepted to the most coveted schools, and it's not the end-all be-all, but it's an important metric, and we should leverage it every way we can and in a timely manner. Whether or not the newsletter needs to go out before the vote, I think I said to you earlier that we can give it the benefit of the doubt and say it does influence a voter. Then let's just make sure, though, that we go out, that we find a process that we can get this thing printed, as you said, leave a blank page or whatever, so that we can get the most complete list we know at the 11th hour before we have to go to press, and then sort of everybody wins. But there are 8th graders in Montessori right now who are going through the process and trying to figure out, what high school they're going at. So it's that community. There are existing 8th grade students in our building now that are deciding whether or not they should go to the Gun or Canterbury or whatever school of their choice. So we have students that live with us. We have students that have yet to come to us. And then we've got that 90% of our taxpayers who don't have students in the district either any longer or never have, never will. And a good chunk of those taxpayers, they're paying their taxes, they don't complain, they just want to go along, they want the schools to thrive. That group of individuals, especially the weekenders, I would say from the cocktail circuits, the conversations you have, that is the key metric. Because test scores and everything else all end with where did those kids go to school. Again, you can argue whether or not that's the right metric or is it fair. If it's not fair, it doesn't matter. They're writing the check, they're happy about it, and you could sort of square that circle very easily by giving them a list of names that will jump off the page. And you will, and because that's what they're looking for, right? That's what they're scanning. And make them feel good about what they're doing. And again, I think it's a cycle thing. So once we get into a way of getting this stuff communicated, I like the idea of the fall newsletter about what the classes are. So we got to think about what messaging we want to do when, not to confuse people, not to just seem like we're just sending out a flyer as a Hail Mary.
Right.
Please don't, come to us. So we got to be thoughtful about how we make all this work together. But again, we've got a good problem to deal with, as they say.
That's true.
Michael?
Yeah, I'd like to second what the gentlemen are saying. I think it's a good idea to have another mailer go out. Having a background in public relations and advertising, it pays to repeat good news. This is something we should be shouting from the rooftops. We can't do that. We'd all go hoarse. But, this is 13 years of Region 12 education, culminating in some remarkable success. And I think that's the position I would take in terms of this newsletter. It doesn't have to be as fancy as the one that just came out. It could be very simple. But I think it's, the message is that we are proud of them. And we want to recognize all students, not just the ones who happen to get in early decision, but all of our Shepaug students for some remarkable accomplishments. And that's a simple message, but I think it's a powerful message.
Valerie?
May I suggest that we have two needs? The first need is a good newsletter going out in April before the budget vote, because taxpayers deserve to know what the heck their money is being spent on. But it doesn't make sense to me to send out anything more right now because it's very costly and people are very concerned about the cost because it was such a professional grade newsletter. And, it did cost money. So why don't we just do a fall, welcome back to Shepaug, here's why you should be with us, and isn't it wonderful? Believe me, if anyone wanted to transfer in here in the fall, we'll take them. Because they saw something in the newsletter, and that can trumpet the graduating class. It's just an obvious kind of post-summer way to do business. And then, of course, in April before the budget vote. So I think we should have two newsletters. I think this one was on the long side. It didn't need to be so long. And perhaps I'd rather see money spent on two newsletters a year instead of one long, glossy one. Make them glossy both times out, but just not as long, that's all. And then we accomplish what we need to do.
All right, well, I think what's being proposed is, as far as I understand, is not a newsletter like this. It's simply somebody said one sheet, or as many sheets as you could fit it on, just an update of college acceptances. Pat, how would you do something like that? How fast could you do something? Do you have any idea how long it might cost to mail something like that?
What I'm thinking is, a folder is always more expensive, am I right, Debbie? Because you have to, so if it was a folder, let's just say that, I would assume one side you have to have the mailing piece. Then you would have here, great job, congratulations, we're proud of our class of 2006. Look inside to see all the wonderful colleges we've been accepted to, and then put the 107 with the little logo and stuff. That's what I'm thinking, you make it look nice. The cost, off the top of my head, I do not know.
You could even do a one-page slightly thicker, it doesn't have to be folded.
Well, that's
You
the
can have
other
everything on
piece.
one side and your address on the other, your postal patron and Shepaug on the front, and then it doesn't even have to be folded.
Right, so it's
It'd be
either
even
folded or
cheaper
not
that way.
folded. It's one or the other. I'm not exactly sure the cost.
If you did it as a postcard, and when I say postcard, I don't mean a little postcard, I mean, it could be a fairly large
Right.
card. The only cost you'll have for printing that will be variable depending on how fancy you get with it. If you make it glossy and multicolored, it's going to cost you a lot more money. If you can keep it to two colors, white and blue, or something like that, it's going to cost you a lot less. If you throw in a third color, it'll increase it a little bit, but that's not more than a few $100s to print that, unless you get fancy with the colors. Your mailing is going to be probably around 500 and change for that.
650.
Well, it's by weight.
No.
Oh, by weight.
No, a single card is maybe, it's either 14 or 21 cents, I forget which, per person. If you send it out in that method the post office has, there's an inexpensive method for mailing it. So we're talking about something that probably costs could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $700, $800 to print it, or it could be a little more if you got fancy. We're not talking about a lot of money, but that's about what you're talking about in terms of cost, if it's a relatively modest thing, under $1,000.
What are we trumpeting, Harvard?
No.
No?
What are we trumpeting? We've got some great names
Would you like to hear
there.
the schools
Well,
that aren't on the
let's,
list?
all right, don't, wow, that school isn't good enough to try.
Would you like to hear the schools that aren't on the list? I can read
Sure.
them quickly, is that all right? Sure. Okay. These are the 34 schools that weren't included. Bentley, Boston University, Bucknell, Carnegie Mellon, Champlain College, Clarkson University, College of William and Mary, Drexel, Emerson, Fairfield U, Fordham U, Franklin and Marshall College, Husson U, Muhlenberg College, New York University, Northeastern, Pace, Rensselaer Poly Institute, Ringling College of Art and Design, Sacred Heart, St. Anselm, St. Norbert, St. Thomas College in Minnesota, Stonehill, SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, SUNY Cortland, SUNY Purchase, Texas A&M, University of Delaware, University of Maryland, University of North Carolina, Wagner College, Wentworth Institute of Technology, and York College.
Texas A&M, I see it now.
Anthony?
Just
Somebody you know went to Carnegie Mellon?
What?
Anthony?
Just
Somebody
as
you
a
know
data
go to
point,
Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah.
The acceptance rate into NYU, for example, is, I think, less than 23% now. So getting into
Agreed.
that particular school, I mean, these are
Hey, you don't have to talk to me. I've gone through two cycles of this, so I
Carnegie,
get it.
Mary, I mean, these are tough schools to get
Just
into.
a data point, if I may, I saw in today's paper, 35,900 applications for UConn.
Yep.
For 3,800 spots. It's about 15%.
Yeah.
And it's less than that at the Storrs campus. It's about 10%, 10.5%. So
So,
anyway,
you know,
do we need a motion?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've never made a motion, so I'd like to make a motion to send a mailing that addresses the college acceptances, and can do it in a one card, one sheet fashion. I would say, knowing, and it's not part of not part of my motion, but I want to say something before I finish the motion. Knowing J&J, I don't know what printer you used, but if we have them do it, they can turn things around within like 3 days. So as part of my motion, I'd like to get this done in the next 2 weeks.
3 days.
Well, all right, well, 3 days, all right, it's a little,
I'm
the next 10 days, the next 10 business days, how's that?
Yeah, we can get it done. I'm not going to say which printer we're going to use.
No, I
'cause
understand
we always
that.
look for the best price and
All right,
et
is there
cetera.
a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, Michael seconds. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question.
Michelle?
I support doing the mailing. I'm wondering if, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking out loud. Does it make sense to throw in any other piece of information so that it seems like, for example, if the state were to finally pass the bonding package or something like that, so that it looks like we're not just sending something that we just sent 2 weeks ago, or is it better to just keep it clean and keep it the college? I don't really have strong thoughts on that. I'm just wondering if it would,
What is the connection that you would make?
no connection, just that new news that we are reporting.
My suggestion would just list the college acceptances.
All right.
We're pleased to announce these.
Just did it.
Yeah, I don't think the state is going to cooperate with our timeline, unfortunately, you know, so.
Is there
Can
any
we
other-
also do a press release, please?
Yeah, that too. Let's pile on.
We can't do,
Pile on.
they're not meeting this week, I thought.
We'll look into that. I mean, that would be a lengthy press release. I don't know if they're free or how what they charge for that or what. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstain?
Me?
One abstention. All right, the motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by Greg. All those in favor say aye. Thank you very much. And remind people the polls are open tomorrow at noon. Please vote.
Jim,
Yes.
can we get the last